Robotnik's empire has brought about widespread suffering and has inflicted severe damage to the environment. The natural world and its inhabitants are being exploited for the sole purpose of benefiting a single man. There is but one installment in an entire franchise which encapsulates genuine anti-authoritarian sentiment far more poignant than its other entries. Put simply, there was a political Sonic game we have misunderstood this whole time. Sonic Spinball, of all things, is probably not the first thing to come to mind at the mention of a so-called political Sonic game. Or any Sonic game for that matter. Yeah, there's no denying it. Nobody talks about this game, if of course they even know it exists. But I promise you that this game is perfect for Sonic, a character who's undoubtedly imbued with rather anti-authoritarian undertones, rather than just, gotta go fast, etc, etc. Seriously, down to the aesthetics, the setting, the plot, and even the gameplay mechanics, Sonic Spinball has the best depiction of insurrection in the entire series. But before I dive right into talking at you about this old game nobody cares about, we need to go over some background first. Sonic is a Japanese creation, albeit one made with Western audiences in mind. There's a cool, rebellious edge to the character. However, Sega's American division, unambiguously named Sega of America, doubled down in this aspect when localizing the games and creating other media, especially the comics and the cartoons. I think the best example of this is the American-made, again unambiguously titled, Sonic the Hedgehog. This cartoon depicted Sonic as a freedom fighter, part of a grassroots rebel faction, constantly engaging in sabotage and guerrilla warfare against Dr. Robotnik and his mechanized forces. The Doctor's totalitarian rule threatened the existence of the remaining natural landscape and its inhabitants. This war between the natural and the man-made is central to Spinball's theming and atmosphere. The true importance of this will be unraveled later on. The implications turned out to be far deeper than I could have ever imagined. While the Japanese developers were working on Sonic 3, the American team at Sega Technical Institute were tasked with making this legendary and influential title in time for Christmas 1993 release. Being the only fully Western Sonic game during this time, Spinball is the only game which completely engages with the anarchic theming at the forefront of the American Sonic mythos. The game is entirely about processes of industrialization, or rather, its consequences. Each level, from beginning to end, makes abundantly clear the environmental harm brought about by Robotnik's grand scheme. As such, I'll be conducting a study of the game on a level-by-level basis. Firstly, before the game even shows you the fruit of Robotnik's labor, you're immediately confronted with its foul byproduct. Unsightly sludge assaults the senses. Truly, this ooze is an awful eyesore. At least the wasteful dumping of barrels allows for the wading through of these wretched waters. The goal of each level is to collect all of the Chaos Emeralds. Collecting the first one drains the goop and reverts the green toxic waste to crystalline blue water. This clearly implies that these minerals are an energy source which maintain this mining infrastructure. Okay, I think I need to consult more official documentation to back this up. Let's pause for a second. Usually, the brief plot explanations in these old instruction manuals are made up when the games were localized for each region. However, we mustn't forget that this is a purely American affair. As both the game and the manual were created under the American wing of the company, this makes the manual the ultimate authority on the subject. This means that I'm able to cite the instruction book as a valid secondary source. This will help supplement our understanding of the game and lend credence to the observations I make. This research is what all true lore masters strive for. Right, here, page 7. The emeralds are being used to stabilize the mechanized fortress. Right, this is starting to make more sense now. This is also confirmed to be where Robotnik dumps industrial waste. This mechanical sea serpent, it means, okay. I know it may seem like I'm stretching a bit to make connections here, but there has to be a deeper meaning to this thing. This snake represents, wait, I've got an idea. Let's check the manual. Okay, a wrong move here, can be being smelling green slime, or worse, being triple. Oh my god. Okay, this guy's name is Rexon, right? So, methinks on-the-nose allusion to oil company of a similar name, mayhaps? We're onto something here, people. This level right at the bottom of the mountain. It's very likely situated at sea level. After all, it is where Robotnik dumps industrial waste. This is no different to how the world's oceans are subjected to desecration as a result of operations of multinational companies. A recent notable example is the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. In 2010, 210 million gallons of oil leaked into the Gulf of Mexico. Whoops. Sorry about that. A considerable amount of oil reached the shore, directly affecting marine life. This cost the oil company billions in fines and cleanup costs, and there still remains waste in the ocean years after. The effects of the leak are still being felt more than a decade later. Moving on to the second level, Lava Powerhouse is exactly what the name suggests. This geothermal energy plant draws power from the lava found within the volcano and converts it into the fuel powering the infrastructure so invasively built within Mount Mobius. These guys create gusts of wind, which Sonic can use to propel himself upwards, similar to how you bounce on top of these bird robots to access the next part of the level. The manual describes this as getting help from them in order to reach higher places. To be honest, get help totally stands in for the term use. You use them for your own personal gain. However, I'll give Sonic the benefit of the doubt. Such a sacrifice is necessary in order to carry out this so-called hedgehog justice. Besides, there is a difference between a robot animal and a real animal. But, speaking of the difference between a robot animal and a real animal, I didn't know what to make of this creature at first, but I think I've cracked it now. Let's compare it to the bird. One's a robot, the other one's not. One's smiling, and the other one has nothing but this lifeless gaze. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Steph, from the YouTube channel Steffi Kush, I think this may be a covert allegory for the disenfranchisement of the labourer. That is to say, the alienation effect, which sees workers reduced to mere automatons as they become estranged from the products of their labour, thus rendering the process itself inhuman. And to that I say, yeah, that's actually a really good observation. You've made a really good point, actually. Yeah, I mean, indeed, the word robot finds its etymological roots in the description of labourers. Therefore, it truly is a rich irony that the name Robotnik, or rather Robotnik, at one point synonymous with socialist connotations, now refers to a figure who benefits from such class struggles. These badniks are animals, which Robotnik has converted into robots, laying bare this analogy of dehumanizing labor. This illusion is at its most striking and obvious in the next level, the machine. The boss of which portrays Robotnik's injustices in action. It is a roboticizer, and it does exactly what it says on the tin. The name of this area, the machine, refers to several things. It bespeaks the machinations through which the denizens of Mobius are stripped of their agency, as well as being the literal, physical machine which represents this phenomenon. However, it is also a very metafictional and self-reflexive reference to the platform through which the fight for Mount Mobius is experienced. The Sega Mega Drive, Sega Genesis. It makes you, the player, the initiator of revolutionary praxis, that is to say, theory in practice. You control both Sonic and the pinball flippers, which, oh yeah, this is a pinball game by the way, I don't know if I mentioned that. This oppression will not end until Sonic ends it himself, echoing the sentiment that it is only through taking action that one can live a life without regret. This quote is of course attributed to the famous Sonic on the Japanese box art. What follows is a haunting prediction of the future. Once all the non-renewable resources have been used up, man will take to the stars when our own planet is no longer enough to sustain industrialization. Despite this not being a particularly new idea, we are finally beginning to see a glimpse of a future in which more advanced space exploration is within a very human grasp. The concern is now as poignant as it has ever been. Let's hope that our future is in the right hands. Something I've always appreciated about this game is really noticeable during this final confrontation. Look at the difference in size between the two. The Doctor is rendered as a behemoth. The choice to make the game's only human character absolutely massive only drives home the fact that Sonic is tiny. For he's only he's like an animal. I was never sure exactly which animal he was supposed to be, but you get the idea. But again, it's the contrast between the natural and the man-made, an animal and a human, as clear as it gets. Sonic must reverse this industrial revolution through his own revolution, a concept at the heart of his character, his very design. He is defined by revolution, always revolving, forever spinning. he must break the cycle of exploitation. The ever-turning wheel which grinds away at the world and its people. It brings about widespread psychological suffering and inflicts severe damage on the natural world.
Find the computer room!